Okay, everyone. So my name is Fatima Reynolds. I am a DJ and producer. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I'm also the founder of Sisters in Sound. And will be introducing OutSmart NYC and our wonderful panelists, as well as Bianca from Femme House. But I did want to take a second to thank Femme House for partnering on this. We had actually started discussing this a few months before all the techno news broke, because it's such an important thing that affects us all. And we need to have tools to be able to manage these things and navigate these kind of murky waters, unfortunately, so everyone can feel free and safe and comfortable performing, dancing, throwing events, etc. So, Bianca, I will give you a second to introduce Femme House and kind of your work briefly.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Fatih. So for those of you who don't know, Femme House is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization. And we really focus on getting women and gender expansive folks in both like the technical side of the house, and behind the scenes of music as well. We just want to make sure that folks are getting the resources they really need, and the access that maybe is hard to find. So we really want to help those future producers or engineers or DJs that are out there. And part of what we do is sometimes sessions like these where we work with others or, chat with folks who are experts in their fields and, hoping that we can learn a little bit from them, engage with each other in our communities. And then at the end of the day, like also help one another boost each other because I think visual representation and knowing that other folks like us are doing the work is really important. So that's sort of the work that we do back here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Please follow Femme House if you don't know them already. They're a nonprofit. Donate, engage with all of their amazing courses as well. And so, a few housekeeping items before I introduce our amazing facilitators. Please interact and write any questions in the chat box or in the Q&A. We will have interactive pieces throughout, but please leave any questions for the end. We'll have plenty of time for that. We also ask that you kindly donate to OutSmart NYC. I'm going to drop the link in the chat so they can continue to do this amazing work. And finally, we will be sending out this recording to you all and to everyone that RSVP'd as well. So you'll be able to kind of review it if you need. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our facilitators that are representing OutSmart NYC. We will start with Nina Vicious. She is a Brooklyn-based DJ, educator, and core team member of the OutSmart NYC team, where she supports bystander intervention and anti-harassment trainings across nightlife spaces. She also teaches at Scratch DJ Academy, helping aspiring DJs build confidence and technical skills, drawing on her experience in both club culture and prevention education. She works to create safer and more inclusive music environments. Welcome.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. And our second facilitator is DJ KK 47. She is an international DJ, community organizer, and nightlife liaison and training facilitator with OutSmart NYC. And she's from the Bronx. She uses hip hop as a tool for resilience and empowerment and founded Girls DJ 2, a program expanding DJ access for girls and women. A U.S. cultural ambassador of hip hop to Ireland and trained social worker, she brings global experience and community-centered leadership to creating safer nightlife spaces. So the microphone is yours, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And yeah, here we go. And please do let me know if you can see what we're presenting.
We can see it.
Awesome, wonderful. Hi, everybody. My name is Nina Vicious. I am so honored to be co-facilitating this workshop with my homegirl, KK47. Safer spaces in music and nightlife is a topic that's super close to my heart. I've been a DJ for 10 plus years in New York City. KK will speak to her own experience, but we both have had experience that definitely warrant this type of a discussion, and we're so excited to get into it with y'all. So I'm going to let KK go ahead and speak a little bit.
Got you. Thank you, Nina. Hi, everybody. My name is KK. I am also honored to be co-facilitating with my DJ bestie, my DJ and work bestie. And so yeah, and I'm also from the Bronx. I'm pretty sure y'all heard the bio. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here, like supporting, and like supporting you all, and like us being musicians, and of course us having the relatable experience of being musicians, within the industry and stuff like that. Hmm.
Awesome. Additionally, you may not know that we have the rest of our team here with us, supporting us, Eric McGriff, Scarlett Thompson, and Emo. All three are in the chat, and you should be able to interact with them over the course of the workshop. We're definitely going to be asking you to participate as well. Okie dokie. So now we're going to get into Outsmart and what Outsmart is. Um, so basically, Outsmart NYC is a collective of nightlife industry professionals, violence prevention specialists, and support service providers collaborating to end sexual violence in nightlife and party spaces. Through our unique partnership, we are able to provide services that are nightlife industry specific, proactive, and trauma informed. This essentially means that therapists from CVTC and New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault combined, um, service providers, people who work with those who have been victims of sexual assault, in collaboration with nightlife staff, such as DJs like myself and KK, front of house staff, back of house staff, are all collaborating together on this initiative. Because there's not one group out of any of us that can do this on our own. We really do need to work together to help to eradicate this issue. So that just gives you a little bit of a background about Outsmart. KK, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much. So we thought that it's important for us to like show you all like what this workshop is going to be about. So here's like a nice little layout for folks. That way, you know what we're getting into. We are going to be getting into some heavy stuff, but it's very important, and we'll definitely talk more about how we're going to ground ourselves for this amazing workshop that we have planned for y'all, right? So the first bullet, it says how sexual and gender-based violence shows up in nightlife. We're going to definitely talk about that. We're going to talk about recognizing and interrupting unsafe dynamics. Some folks say harm, right? We're going to be talking about building consent culture in music spaces, right? So all of us are musicians or some sort of creative in some sort of way. So this is bias for us. um, Four, we're gonna be talking about protecting yourself as an artist because like Nina mentioned earlier, there has been plenty of experiences in which, we probably felt either unsafe or we felt like, we weren't protected, right? And so we're gonna talk about those things and get more into that. And then our fifth bullet point that we have is pretty much like practical bystander intervention tools. So like little tools and stuff that's really gonna help and really support with you being the person who could definitely support somebody if they're going through a particular situation, a victim of some sort.
And just a note about protecting yourself as an artist, I just want to elaborate and clarify that we do not partake in any sort of victim blaming. And so when we get into that type of discussion, we're going to be giving tools and tips, but that does not make it okay for anything to happen. If you haven't done any of these proactive steps, that does not make anything that's happened to you okay. And so I just want to affirm that before we move on. All right, KK, take it away.
All right. So we have some community agreements, as we really do feel like it's very important to again ground ourselves, right? Because again, this is like this is heavy content to like talk about, but it's also important, right? And so our first community agreement that we have so far is to respect confidentiality and lived experiences, right? Um, I feel like it's self-explanatory, but basically, just making sure that what's said here stays here, but what's learned here leaves here, right? And to me, like when I hear that, I think about you're not like explaining the exact story of what somebody said that happened, but you're talking about the lesson that you learned without like, giving away like confident, information and stuff like that, right? The second one we got, right, is to engage at your own comfort level. We're gonna talk more about this, but of course, again, like being able to, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, you're nourishing yourselves. I know that we are doing this virtually, but even in person, we are always talking about, okay, if you have to use the restroom, if you have to like step out for a minute, feel free to like take some of that time. So in the virtual world, I would say do what you will with that information. If you gotta, use the restroom, you gotta do certain things to like really make sure that you're up and you're present for this particular workshop. Um, do what you can do to like take care of yourselves, right? Listen with curiosity and care, right? Sometimes, when it comes to like, being at a particular workshop or like being at an event, right? It's always important to like really listen, because you may never know like what you're gonna learn from that other person. And we want the space to be a space where everybody's learning from each other. I know that we are the facilitators, but the whole point of being a facilitator is to also engage, right? And to like have other folks be part of this conversation. So we are going to have some moments where we will be asking you all some questions. And of course, the participation is optional, right? So again, step away if you need it. All right.
Okay. Um, and by the way, I'm super introverted myself, so I totally get it if you do not feel like participating in the chat, but we are wanting to hear from you, and we are, wanting this to be as interactive as you want it to be, so feel free to share at your own leisure. Uh, I'm passing it to KK again.
Great. So I know we kind of mentioned some of these things in the previous slide, but the reason why we're mentioning this a lot is for you to hopefully feel safe with us, right? To feel like you can actually, utilize these community agreements, right? These community agreements are made for us to be grounded and to have a basic, a understanding, where we all like are on the same level. And so with check in, check out, that's more like, for instance, we are going to be talking about some tough content, right? So for instance, we talk a lot about gender-based violence, right? We're talking about racism. We're talking about all the different isms that play a role in sexual violence, unfortunately, right? Or is connected to that. So it's okay to check in with yourself, right? Check in with each other, right? I don't know how we'll do that with the chat, but I'm pretty sure hopefully in the chat we could create a nice little community there, right? Folks could feel like they're checking on each other and stuff like that. Real conversations, real change, right? So real conversations leading to real change. Um, Sometimes like I know I keep saying the word sometimes. Just thinking about like if you've worked at a particular organization, right? And there's like the organization is requiring you to watch a sexual violence video, right? Funny enough, when I started applying for, particular school job, they had us take de-escalation workshops, workshops that's related to like just anything, right? And so we're going to be having these real conversations, and it's really important that we have these conversations because the more somebody tries to like block those conversations from happening, the more things start happening, and we're like building even more of a bigger issue when it comes to sexual violence, right? And so it's really important to have those conversations because you'd be surprised how one conversation could really make a huge difference and sexual violence prevention, especially, or in somebody's life, right?
I'm gonna
Um,
jump in and help you, KK, if that's okay, because I feel like I've
yeah,
been having you talk quite a bit.
you're
But
fine.
thank you so much. Our next point is, and this is something that's so relevant everywhere we go and anywhere we do a training, is to assume best intentions and also own your impact. So when we say assume best intentions, this can be so difficult to do, especially when we're talking about the very triggering topics that we talk about and um it's very relevant to this specific topic because, we are going to have a lot of femmes in the chat, a lot of people who identify as femme, and who may have experienced harm from people who um, are maybe cishet men, just calling a spade, and certain demographics where your assumption is that they do not have the best intentions as it pertains to the topics that we're going to be talking about. And we may even have people in the chat who don't have all the information that we're talking about. And they may say something in the chat and it may offend you. And it could just be that they're trying to learn and they don't have the right language. And hopefully, this workshop is helping us to impart that information. And so, if you do see something that's offensive, maybe giving people a little bit of grace and assuming that they do mean the best within this setting of this being an educational environment. Um, and, also challenging us. Feel free to challenge us. If we say something that does not sit right with you and you want to tell us that you don't agree or that it made you feel some type of way, we welcome that. We totally welcome that. And our egos will not get in the way of taking accountability or receiving feedback from you. And also, we want you to know that this is the beginning of a conversation. We do not have Awesome. Thank you. We do not have all of the answers. We are trying to work collectively with the nightlife community to help to prevent sexual violence in nightlife spaces to the best of our ability. And it's a community effort. And so what we're presenting to you is the information we have and what we know and what we can share with you. And our hope is that we will also be able to learn from you. Um, so if you are comfortable with this, and we hope you are, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourselves in the chat. For anybody who does want to share, maybe introduce yourself. If you prefer to stay anonymous, that's fine. But if you'd like to introduce yourself and give us pronouns, if you want to tell us how you're involved in nightlife, how you're involved in the music scene, um, you're more than welcome to, and we'll give you a second to do that if you'd like. And if not, that's okay, but we'll give you a second to do it anyway. And ooh, okay,
Oh,
Scarlett. Hey, Scarlett, how you doing?
hey.
Scarlett's not scared of nobody.
Yeah. Shout out to
Scarlett
Scarlett.
said, "I'm gonna jump right on in and introduce myself." Um, Scarlett is our supervisor, and she's taught us a great deal along with Eric. So we love them.
Yes. No,
Hi,
shout out to the whole
Mimi,
team.
aka DJ Tony. Enot. I have a. Ooh, we love that.
I like that.
I love a mental health and nightlife initiative because
Yes.
we need that. So I would love to build with you after this if possible.
Yeah, I was
As
about
a
to say we
matter of
should
fact,
definitely talk more after that.
you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put my Instagram right up in the chat so we can connect. Listen,
Yes.
KK is yours KK47, DJ KK47, any underscores on
You know what?
Insta?
So mine is like straight through DJ KK47, but I'll just type
Boom.
that up in
Oh,
there.
there we go. There we go. There we
Thank
go.
you. Sometimes I
Okay.
do forget to promote myself sometimes.
And I'm always gonna put a stop to that. Okay, so uh so we've got some DJs in the chat, which I love.
Yes.
And hi Picha. I enjoy writing songs and dancing bachata. Oh, I know that's right.
Oh, are you from Uptown?
I was just gonna say.
Look, I'm from the Bronx.
Picha, you from Uptown? You from the Bronx? Washington Heights? Okay.
Aw.
It's all good. It's all good. Oh, South Carolina.
Oh,
Okay, let's go.
okay.
Bachata in South Carolina. We love to see it.
Hmm.
Feel free to continue introing yourself in the chat at your own leisure. We are going to try and move things along, but we're so happy to be meeting all of you. And anybody who doesn't want to intro themselves, that's totally fine. Um, so, oh, okay. We were over here
Oh.
talking to you just now. Okay, Scarlett. So now everybody knows who we were talking about before. They probably thought we were talking about some kind of phantom, Zoom phantom. Okay. Yes, there we go. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's get into the content. Um, so we want to ask you, and we're pitching this to you first because this is a collaborative effort. What do you think sexual violence is, and what does sexual violence look like to you in your experience? Everybody has a different understanding of what sexual violence is, and so I guess what we'd like to hear from you is what does it look like for you in the entertainment and music industry and the experiences that you specifically have? Because if I go into my interactions and my experiences and KK goes into hers, we're probably going to have two completely different stories, but it's all rooted in the same tomfoolery. And for the DJs, what does sexual violence look like behind and in front of the DJ booth? You do not have to do any disclosures. What's good, Andrea? We love
Hey.
Andrea. Yeah, so that's Andrea is another member of the Outsmart team, works a great deal in harm reduction. So that's somebody that you definitely want to build with. Andrea, if you want to put your Instagram in the chat, so people know where to find you, that'd be awesome. And then what are some behaviors, wonderful Fatima, thank you, that feel off but are hard to classify? And this is one that I know y'all have probably had a lot of experience with, right? Crossing physical boundaries, being followed around in the club. So a little bit of stalking type of situation, leering. Um, and what's interesting about crossing physical boundaries is that in the DJ space, in the nightlife space, that can pertain to either literally touching you when it's unwarranted, or it could be not respecting your wishes to not be in the booth, have somebody in the booth with you. Um, not wanting to have somebody hovering over you, breathing over you, um, barking orders at you when you're supposed to be the one in charge. You're supposed to be the one on the decks. You know what I mean? So there's all sorts of ways that physical boundaries can be crossed that are not so obvious. Okay. So that's interesting to hear a little bit about that from y'all. And I'm sure there'll be more coming through, but just keep these questions in mind. Moving right along.
All right.
So, yep. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is based on, well, first off, thank you all for sharing, what are some like sharing your answers to the questions that we mentioned. This is just like, some definitions of what we have of like what sexual violence could be. And so, sexual violence refers to harm resulting from an array of unwanted sexual behaviors, right? Again, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Nina, when you said what you said earlier, the first thing I was thinking about how rich I would be because of all of the experiences, which I'm pretty sure, like I would say, a lot of folks would agree that it's unfortunate that these things happen. And we're gonna talk more about how some things happen, um, even when we don't realize it's actually connected to this. We're gonna like talk about that in a bit. And sexual violence is also rooted in power imbalances and interacts heavily with all forms of systemic oppression and identity-based harm.
Okay. So y'all already know, for those of y'all that are in nightlife spaces. Um, so with that being said, oh, this is also KK. Apologies.
Oh, no, you're fine. So I realized we were supposed to have one of our teammates facilitate, but I'm
That's
down to
okay.
facilitate this part of
I know the number. I know the number. I know the answer because I asked him.
it.
Okay. So we were talking about what it is, but I think the important thing is how can we actually identify these incidences in nightlife spaces and what are we supposed to be looking out for and what are we actually supposed to be doing, which is what about it, which is what we're supposed to be covering in this workshop, right? So we have a game called the F game, and KK can tell you a little bit more about it.
Oh, so before I tell you about it,
Yeah.
Nina, if you could do me a nice little favor and go back to the previous slide real quick.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Got you. Yeah.
Great. So I'm hoping none of you actually did what I'm about to explain.
Yeah.
So going back to what Nina was saying in terms of counting a particular thing, so we're gonna show that same stanza again, and your role is to count how many letter Fs that you see in that sentence.
Okay.
I guess a thumbs up in the chat if you got the instructions. And I think we'll probably do like what, 10 seconds?
Okay.
We'll do like maybe 10 seconds. Is 10 seconds? Okay, perfect. Let's do it.
So thank you. Count the number of letter Fs in the statement.
Okay. And next. Oh, sorry. Next as in,
What's that?
oh, sorry, did it freeze?
No,
Oh,
I'm here.
okay. Got you. So how many Fs did folks count? Okay.
Beautiful. That's Eric that said that. That's Eric that said 12. I was like, I know that's Eric that said that. So, um, I love these responses. I always get it wrong to the
Same.
point where I actually had to ask Eric before this workshop how many Fs were in this, and I've done this exercise a million times. Um, the correct number of Fs is 9. So shout out to Peacha. Peacha got it right.
Yeah, I can't count. Come on.
Eric is being very bold under the Femme House title with the screen blacked out. So yeah. Yeah, right. Wonderful. Thank you. Fatima really hit the nail on the head, and it gets to the heart of why we do this game.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times, and the first time and multiple times after that I've played this game, I forget the ofs. Um, there are other reasons why you might forget uh, or might not count some of the Fs. Um, does anybody think that they have some other reasons why they missed it? Because the of is definitely one. Peach be mathing. Peach said, "I'd be mathing." um, there's also, I'm seeing there are two words that have two Fs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
they're both next to each other, which is
Yeah, and the ofs are small. They're easy to skip. It's a filler word. And so really, that's right. We see them all the time. And
mhm.
so I think, and so the reason why we do this game is because we want you guys, well, we want you all to be able to notice the of moments that happen in real life. When you're in nightlife, when you're on the dance floor, and not just in the dance floor, because in this community, there are times where we're at a party or a bar networking, we're at some open decks event, we're just meeting up with another group of DJs. Maybe we're chilling backstage at a party or some sort of artist networking meeting or something like that. There are all sorts of different scenarios in which you may miss an of moment and not see where the harm is happening. And so we want to get into that.
Mhm.
Um,
And so speaking of moments,
yeah.
we have this I would say beautiful umbrella, but we have an umbrella, right? That is called sexual violence, said here, right? And so on the left side, right, these are we have listed things that people would normally be like, this is being part of sexual violence, right? And for in other cases, for some folks, on the right side, that is the side of things that normally happen in nightlife spaces, but are often ignored or dismissed. We don't realize, or at least a lot of folks don't usually realize that these things are usually connected to sexual violence, right? So go back to when we was thinking about, when we were doing the F game, right? And talking about those of moments that we miss. Unfortunately, the of moments that some folks miss are usually the ones that are on the right side of this umbrella, or at least from our view of looking at the umbrella.
All right. And I can't tell you how many times I have been in a space with other artists where people have very creative ways of using jokes to create a space that feels very unsafe, and sideways comments. So these are things to keep in mind when you're in those spaces.
Mhm.
Um, so one thing that we'd like for y'all to write in the chat and interact with us about is um, who is at risk. Sorry, KK,
So,
I did not see.
n- no, you're fine.
Mhm.
Basically, like who is at risk, right? So historically, when you think about people being at risk in the mainstream media, who does the mainstream media tell us survivors are usually? Like, how do they look? Okay, we see women in the chat, white women. hmm any particular age of the women, if that's what folks see? Oh, cis women. English speaking and crying. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but don't put me around a serious situation like that. I'm joking. Cis, yep, straight, young, and yep, virginal. Not sex workers, right? So these are some really good, examples of like what we usually see in mainstream, right? And we are here to also tell you that we have some beautiful information about other groups of people who are also survivors, right? And so we have sexual and gender-based violence can include, right? In the US, 1 in 2 trans or gender nonconforming individuals, right? 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men experience sexual violence during their lifetimes, right? And with these rates are even higher for trans people of color and those who have done sex work, been homeless, or had a disability, right? So again, right, y'all mentioned in the chat that, white cis women who is probably not a sex worker or who, you mentioned all these examples. And then here we are with some statistics, right? 1 in 5 Black women are sexually assaulted during their lifetimes. 2 out of 3 Two-Spirit slash trans indigenous people experience sexual violence during their lifetimes, and more than 1 in 2 indigenous women are sexually assaulted during their lifetimes. And this is not even including um like people who aren't even being documented, or what I mean by that is like folks who haven't even reported their stories.
Yeah. That's something that we want to point out too, is that we give these stats for people who need them, or who need to see them so that they know that this is even happening. Most likely for the people who are on this workshop, you probably already believe and know that these things are happening, to these groups of people. But the stats aren't always reflecting the sheer level of people that are actually impacted because of the amount of people who do not want to disclose that information. I can speak from personal experience as a Black woman of a particular age, and who presents in a particular way that there have been instances that have happened to me that I have not felt comfortable speaking on because I'm not even sure if anybody is going to believe that it happened. And so, I'm certain that I'm not alone. And so these statistics do, um, it gives some information, but it's not giving the whole picture.
hmm
So let's get into understanding harm in nightlife. And just so you know, sexual and gender-based violence can include a whole host of behaviors, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But in a nutshell, harassment and unwanted advances, as you know, there are so many different behaviors that can encompass boundary violations. So anything from groping to literally I told you to stay out of my DJ booth. Why are you in the booth if I told you that this is my personal space? That's a boundary violation as well. Uh, Coercion tied to professional opportunities. When it comes to things that are more difficult to name and harder to count, for people being harassed in nightlife, this is something that is very common, using coercion, um, and tied to professional opportunities. If I don't do, then I'll lose out on money that I need to pay my bills. If I don't do, then I'll lose out on an opportunity that could be huge for me and my family, etc. Um, Abuse of power in booking or label relationships, that's connected to the last one. And these dynamics, as we know, often exist quietly within creative industries. Sometimes because a lot of us are prone to protecting each other, um, because we know how vulnerable we all are as freelance artists. Um, Sometimes these dynamics exist quietly, because freelance creatives don't have an HR department. You know, most places that you work have an HR department or an HR person or a union or something where you can go and complain, you can go and talk about your situation. In our spaces, rarely is that the case. And a lot of the things that happen to us are often considered to just be a part of our job, right? And feel free to add anything else that this makes you feel in the chat. KK, if you want to add anything to that, you're more than welcome.
Got it. I'm also thinking about like even like you said, right? Some folks might not have an HR. I think a lot about like a person like myself who doesn't have a manager and thinking about how like it is hard to like navigate and to like advocate for yourself and to create boundaries because being in a particular industry where folks are like trying to gaslight or manipulate you into thinking like this is what you're supposed to take um could definitely be stressful and overwhelming and a lot, right? As an artist. But just thinking about like the power dynamics, right? Especially recognizing harm in like these music spaces, right? Like for instance, we're talking about like being behind the DJ booth, right? And
Mhm.
how like there's so many things that can happen um, around that. People violating space physically, emotionally, mentally. Um, and even like on the dance floor, right? Sometimes like especially like if say if you're the DJ, but you're not like the DJ of the event, but you're at an event like myself, we're having a great time. And even on the dance floor, it's like you have to watch out because unfortunately there are folks who are like crossing boundaries, who might not want to take no for an answer. Um and depending on the situation, like something is happening, right? Even in green rooms or backstage areas,
Which
right?
I've personally had happen myself. In the last slide, we've talked about the what, and right now we're talking about the where these things can happen. Green rooms and backstage areas, especially if you're opening up for a headliner and you don't want to disappoint you, and they've invited you to the backstage area, or they've invited you to the green room. Um, it can be a very tricky space to be in because you don't want to say no to somebody who has authority over you, who has experience over you. You want to feel honored to be in that space with them. Um, but it's easy to be taken advantage of in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also with promoters, uh, venues, labels, booking agents, it really does depend on what facet of the music industry you're in. KK and I really come from the lens of being in nightlife and performing. But I'm sure that these exist in all sorts of areas of the music industry. Um, and so before we were talking about all of the different ways that sexual violence can manifest, but they actually exist in layers. And a lot of the times when it comes to identifying of moments in music and nightlife spaces, little moments where we can stop something from escalating to uh, a more volatile situation, it's important for us to consider that there are layers of cultural harm. And of course, Eric and Scarlett, if you want to chime in the chat with anything that I'm not covering here, feel free. KK as well. But as you all know, some of the most extreme versions of violence exist in that little seed at the bottom of these layers of cultural harm. But there are all sorts of things that lead up to that. And it starts at birth. When we think about gender-based violence and harassment, even something as common um, as carting people at the door and not believing that they are the gender that they're saying that they are because it doesn't coincide with what you're seeing on their ID. Um, that sort of mentality that causes those types of actions starts at birth when we're assigned these rigid gender roles. Um, and of course, racialized gender stereotypes. KK and I are Black women, and Black women are often hypersexualized, and all sorts of attributes are assigned to Black women. That allow people to treat us in certain or that make people feel that they should be able to treat us in certain ways, and that there are certain behaviors that we should be able to take that other people couldn't take because we're not quite as delicate and we're not quite as. And so um that all starts from birth. And there's sort of like this trickle down effect where these sort of ideologies and these norms lead to environments where people feel comfortable making racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, fatphobic, and other discriminatory jokes. If you read that one line and you think to yourself, how many times have I been in a nightlife space or amongst my creative peers and heard somebody make a racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic or fatphobic or any other kind of discriminatory joke? I mean, if I had a nickel for any time that that's happened, I'd be rich by now. Um, Problematic language, objectification of women who want to dress a certain way because we are in a DJ space. I know that I can speak about, and KK and I were having this conversation. KK, you can feel free to jump in if you want, because this conversation about how anytime you see a femme presenting person dressed in a suggestive way, there's always this assumption that she can't really DJ or she didn't really get the job on her own merit or she's not really, and those sorts of ideas really it creates an environment that then leads to more severe situations down the line. KK, if you want to speak to that, because I know we were talking about that.
Yeah, I was also thinking about, I'm so sorry. I live in the Bronx, so they blasting music right now, and I'm
That's
trying
fine. That's
to
fine. That's fine.
um, but I also think a lot about like one time I've actually had an experience where folks assumed the type of music I played just off of what I wear, just off of like appearance. Um, and I made it a point to let the person know, like, hey, like I actually like a lot of different types of music. And especially I notice it when they talk about like I always feel like there's this moment of like folks trying to have folks compare women artists to each other a lot. And not to say that men artists don't get compared, but there's a difference. Like there's
Certainly.
something about it that's like a little weird, right? And so, the person was like, "Oh, you look like you listen to Sexy Red." And I was like, "I do listen to Sexy Red." And I listen to Queen Latifah. And I listen to Lauryn Hill and Erykah Badu, and the list goes on, Missy, right? But it really says a lot about how, you know, and I'm not trying to say this on some like trying to bash men or anything. No, I'm just saying from my experiences, I'm noticing a pattern. We notice a pattern, and that certain men from my experiences have always been trying to humble me, right? always trying to like humble somebody. Um, and it's annoying. It's like, hey, we're just trying to like do our thing. We're trying to have fun. Always feeling like we have to work twice as hard. Um, and it's unfortunate because it does show up in the early stages, right? Racism, the sexism, the homophobia, transphobia.
And I was just gonna say, as you were talking about people trying to humble you or making comparisons in an effort to make somebody else feel worse about themselves between women in the industry. For one, it prioritizes male validation in the industry for women, which I think is an issue in and of itself that we could probably do a whole other workshop about. But it also takes us all the way down from more obvious forms of cultural harm like slurs, street harassment, and threats, down to psychological abuse. Because, in my opinion, that's a type of psychological abuse. When you are strategically and methodically comparing various women in the scene to each other in an effort to humble them, or trying to humble us in any way, which is common and very subtle and happens quite often. That is a form of psychological abuse. Um, and then all of these layers lead to environments where somebody who is already prone to doing harm can then get to a point where they'd even have the thought in their mind to sexually abuse somebody or physically abuse somebody or murder somebody. Um, Not everyone is going to go and do something like that. But these layers of cultural harm create an atmosphere where somebody who is prone to it will then feel comfortable enough to do it. And so when we talk about prevention, we're trying to address prevention from all of these different angles by trying to identify where we see all of these different behaviors and cultural norms in nightlife and consider what we can do to be the change and try to stop it when we see it. Okay? KK, is there anything else you'd like to say about that before I jump?
So one thing I was thinking about, and
And please feel free to write anything you have to say in the chat about that.
right,
We'd love to hear from you.
one thing I was thinking about was there's this meme. So I love memes, right? If somebody sends me a good meme, I love to laugh. And so one meme that came to mind was if you let them shenan, they're gonna shenan again.
I love it. And I'm going to write it in the chat
And
for
it's
all to
not
see.
and I'm not trying to say it from a place of like victim blaming, no, right? It's more of like when we start to notice certain things piling up, if it's like a same pattern, and it's like figuring out, okay, how can us as the bystander folks, how can we intervene and nip it in the bud? Because if a person who is not doing if somebody's witnessing something and the person is not doing something about it, then that person is going to keep thinking it's okay, right? And so it's more like, how do we um you know address the smallest things that turns into the big thing, right? And we're going to talk a bit more about that too, because the small things, the things that we might think is small, is actually leading to like the big dragon, the big monster, which we call sexual violence. um
Oh my goodness. I am trying so hard to write this thing without being corrected by Zoom. If you let them shenan, they're going to shenan again. That's so important. I had to do it. I had to do it. Um, um, right. Thank you, Eric. And thank you, Scarlett. Right. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. So what are we supposed to do about it, right? That's what we're here to find out. Um, we do our best. We work together and we're doing our best, and we're going to offer some tips, and we're also going to accept feedback from y'all so that we can work together to figure out how we can um, prevent these types of behaviors in the spaces that we want to feel safe and joyous in. Um, So, of course, the opposite of sexual violence culture is consent culture.
Hmm. So, um, we have
I don't
two
think we
options.
have the capacity to do breakout rooms in this
Yeah,
particular thing.
got you. I was
Yeah.
about to say, you know what? We're not gonna do it. So we can, if folks want to just answer in the chat,
Mhm.
um, what would it look like to you to build a culture of consent in nightlife and music venues?
Originally, we were considering doing breakout rooms, but it's not necessary, as KK said. I'm actually really enjoying talking to y'all in the chat.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, Scarlett said people actually prioritizing asking for DJs, sorry, for people's boundaries before booking them and then telling the whole staff so they can support the DJ.
Yeah. The
Oh.
whole staff is key. The whole staff.
Chanel said define boundaries.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Oh.
Every time we respond to Scarlett, they're probably just like, "What is wrong with the communicating
They're
before?"
like, is this an imaginary friend that
They're
we
like,
have?
"Why are they doing this?" Scarlett,
Oh.
hang on. Let me see if I can repost what Scarlett said. Scarlett. So that's what Scarlett said. Oh my God.
And then Pitcha, let me know if I'm saying your name right. But Pitcha said communicating before doing, talking to each other more and assuming less in general. Oh, perfect. Yay. Andrea, what Andrea said, having consent policies in the green rooms and when hiring talent, include the policy in the contract at or at the same, sorry, it's been a long day.
All good.
Um, the policy in the contract or at the time of being invited.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Mm.
So, thank you, Fatima. Yeah, so if you want to select everyone when you're typing in the chat, that's cool. If you just want to send it to us, that's cool too. And I'll go back and look to see. Chanel, I think KK already said that you said define boundaries, which is true.
I mean, heavy on it to say it
Yeah,
twice. Like,
yeah. Awareness teams like a third independent entity that vibe checks, which is amazing, Mimi, that you should say that because we do have we do offer safety advocacy. We're doing safety advocacy at an event this summer. We've done it before. We did it at Red Bull Culture Clash. We've done it for New York City Beer Week, Beer Bash. We've done it for a bunch of events. We've collaborated with a bunch of different collectives across the city. Um, and we'll be at Punk Island as well this summer doing that and anywhere else. But having a third independent entity that vibe checks, if you know a venue that has a particular issue and you're like, you know what, I think they could use a training, feel free to let them know about us because our training is free. And so, um, but these are all amazing. Andrea, yes, 100%, 10,000% on the consent policies in the green rooms when hiring talent, because I really do think that it's like if you let those artists know that you prioritize this, it may not stop the behavior, but it'll at least put that kernel of a thought in their head. Listed policies around the space. Yep. And in ticket purchases. That's good.
mhm.
If you put a kernel of the idea in their head that this is not a space that's going to just, buddy pal around with me if I'm accused of something and go, oh, it's just nightlife and this is what happens in nightlife. Because there are some spaces and some management teams that do have that mentality. And that's just the fact of the matter. But if they know that you're not a venue that tolerates that, it'll put that idea in their mind, you know what, let me fall back a little bit, you know? So I love these. So we did our little brainstorm break. And continue, feel free to continue to share. It's no pressure, but as thoughts come to you.
Mhm.
So we're gonna offer some tips that we have for building consent culture at events. Um, we've got a couple of slides that we're gonna share with you before we go into a Q&A. Um, and so KK, you can go ahead and do this one.
Got you. So, I've noticed that folks have mentioned some of the things that we've mentioned as examples of our things. So for instance, language and communication, right? So folks mentioned code of conduct, consent policies, etc. Collaboration with staff and promoters. Yep, we spoke about that too. Some folks mentioned asking for people's boundaries before booking them, right? Supporting safer working environments. So the example that we mentioned here is like during events at trusted establishments, booking a prevention training. So, yep, everything here is basically, what we kind of mentioned already, and folks already like brainstormed and like gave us answers about these things. So that also shows that you're all on the right page.
Hmm.
Give yourself a little pat on the shoulder.
And when
Right?
it comes to throwing events at trusted establishments, just a note that we do have we have a I'll share our website in the chat. We have a page that lists the venues that we've worked with, which isn't to say those are the only venues that are trusted establishments. It just lets you know that it's a venue that took a training with us. Um, but it's something. Um, and if you know that there's a venue that has their own method of doing it, even if they haven't taken a training with OutSmart, and you just know that they're a trusted establishment, maybe prioritize working with them.
Mhm. Oh, and then sorry, I don't know why I thought we mentioned the last bullet
No,
already.
it's okay.
But basically, modeling like respectful behavior behind the scenes, right? So as we mentioned before, we do a lot of safety advocacy. And so to us, or at least to me, I'll speak on the ice team, but I feel like I want to speak on behalf of like the whole team.
Yeah.
When we're doing safety advocacy, we are, to me, we're modeling what we are facilitating to you, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of the things we talk about, the tools and stuff, we're not only are we modeling these things during safety advocacy, but even when we're not working and we're just going out and having a great time, I know I have to do my job on myself sometimes. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, I'm grateful for the tools.
Um, Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to know, maybe some examples
Mhm.
of modeling respectful behavior behind the scenes, because we're going to get into some bystander intervention tips, and this falls into that. But recently, I was DJing an event, and there was a woman who likes to come and dance by herself, which I totally feel that. Um, I love showing up to a place dolo sometimes when you just need to dance it out, whatever you're going through. And she was just dancing it out from the start of the event to the end of the event. And she and I have actually become very friendly since then because there was a couple that walked into the party and the it was a cishet couple, man and woman, and the man was very, very drunk. Or under the influence of whatever. Now, being drunk in and of itself is not causing these harms. Um, you can get drunk and not do any of that stuff. There are plenty of people, like Eric always likes to say, when he gets drunk, he just does the cha-cha and dance and all that, which we can confirm he does do that. Uh, but but um but not everybody, and yeah, you definitely do. So Um, but you know, people who already kind of wanted maybe to behave but in a more belligerent fashion, once they're loose, those behaviors can come up. And this man decided that he was going to start barreling all around the dance floor, pushing people in a quote unquote playful way, in the spirit of dance and movement. He was literally just pushing people, including his girlfriend. So I remembered that Eric had mentioned, hey, DJs, if you see something crazy, maybe get on the mic and say, hey, I'm glad everybody's having a good time, but just make sure that the person who's dancing with you wants to be dancing with you. Make sure that the person you're interacting with feels comfortable and safe, XYZ. And so I was really nervous to do it. That's not for everybody. And I just started doing mic work the other day. So I wasn't sure if I really wanted to do that, but I felt really nervous for this girl and I didn't feel like she was safe. So I got on the mic and I was just like, listen, I'm so glad everybody's having a good time. Let's just make sure we're respecting each other's personal space. When I tell you, not only the girl thanked me, but his girlfriend thanked me for stopping him. Because she was also annoyed and frustrated by the behavior. So, it's little things like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't got to run out into the dance floor and manually remove somebody. You don't have to like wag your finger at anybody. Just little subtle things here and there. You know what I mean? And yeah, and Scarlett, she and I are friendly now, actually. So it's really nice. Um, I agree, Juan. For sure. Viva los DJs. I love that. Um, so this takes us into our bystander tips. These are ways that you can prevent a violent situation from happening in nightlife spaces in a way that doesn't necessarily call people out or make people feel like you're wagging your finger at them or escalate a big dramatic reaction. It's meant to de-escalate the situation. It's meant to prevent a bigger thing from happening. So these are some things that you can do. And KK, do you want to start?
Mhm. So, the first one we have, which are examples. Sorry, I can't remember the exact like names because I feel like there was a piece where we had like the actual names of the
Thank
things.
you, Eric. I'm realizing that now.
Thank you.
So the first one is check in.
Got you. So checking in is more like, coming up to the person if you see something happening, right? And just being like, hey, what brings you here tonight? Another example, are you okay? What's going on? Now, for me, in general, like even when we do safety advocacy, even if I'm not witnessing anything, right? I just like to ask these questions in general, right? Get to know the people that's at this party. Hey, do you need some water? XYZ. You'd be so surprised how a whole story would just come from those simple questions. Because it's happened to me before. But we'll talk
Uh,
more about that. Hmm.
and then, yeah, no, that's amazing. And I actually love that you started with that one because I would say we're very yin and yang in the sense that, thank you, Eric. We're very yin and yang in the sense that KK is very extroverted in okay, Camilla. Um, oh, that you sent that to us. Sorry. I'm over here sharing
Oh.
private messages that we're receiving. It's all good. But KK and I are very yin and yang in the sense that in social situations, I know that KK is actually quite extroverted and she's very outgoing. And myself, I consider myself to be a little bit more introverted in my opinion. And so I can see KK actually going, "Hey, what's good? Like, what brought you here? Do you know the DJ? Like, what you drinking?" Or like just like starting a conversation with somebody. Whereas I would kind of need something else to start the conversation, like a distraction. So one thing and this is something that I use more than anything, like I will not just go up to somebody and check in. If I see something crazy going on, my favorite thing to do is to walk up to the person who I think is being targeted and use a distraction, like, oh my God, I love your shirt. But I'll say something like, I think I remember I saw this woman with a winter white coat on and she looked like so elegant and classy. And I was just like, everybody here is dressed all in black because it's New York. And I was like, and you look so elegant in your winter white coat. Or like asking somebody what color nail polish they have on, or telling them that I love their beat. Or, like I love talking about makeup. So I'll just be like, ooh, cute, and I'll do things like that that seem so innocent but it's really like meant to actually stop something in its tracks that's happening because what it does is it actually lets the person who's doing the harm know in a small way without you having to call them out or wag your finger at them or anything that you have eyes on them. Like it lets them know, oh, somebody's actually looking at us right now. So I can't covertly do what I was trying to do. Um, the third one um, is speak up. KK, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so when speak up, right, it's more of like, can you tell me where I can find X? And going back to what Nina mentioned earlier, oh my gosh, I love your shirt. Right? And so even just like saying things could definitely make a difference. The fourth one, um, sorry, I'm just like,
Apologies. Oh,
yeah.
yes. The fourth one is separate. I am trying to send something in the chat and I can't. Um, the fourth one is to separate. So this would be something that I would consider to be more so for security. I feel like when we're giving trainings, to staff, uh, because I'm not outgoing enough to try and use my body to physically move people, but maybe somebody else would feel comfortable doing that.
Right. I'm not gonna lie. I had to do it.
Good for you. See,
But
this is
it
what
was
I'm
like,
talking about.
but I don't be wanting to. And it's always when I'm not actually working. I could just be hanging out, having a great time, and now I'm like, oh, now I gotta sit here. Because of course I'm not gonna let it in, at least in my eyes. But it was more like I didn't really have to do like physical content too much. Like
You can also
physical
ask somebody to go out for a
movement.
smoke, right?
So for me, it was I pretended to that the person who was like the victim in the situation, I like had them pretend they were my cousin because I just happened to be hanging out with my cousin that night at a particular venue, and they
Hmm.
had a little patio in the back, but we was in the bar area, me and the person. So I said, "Hey, cousin so and so is looking for you. Let's go."
I
You know.
remember the story. We talked about this. We will not name the venue, but me and
Right.
KK know the tea. Um, but okay, I very strategically moved through a crowd to break up awkward situations, fights, and even unblock exits, bathrooms, and congested areas that create problems. Just so y'all know, Eric is a very tall man. So I'm gonna let you do that, Eric. I'm gonna let you do that, and I'm gonna let security do it. But there
I
are other
mean,
ways that you can. Uh-huh.
one time we did have to involve the security, at least when I was doing safety advocacy. And funny enough, that was the one event that I had my mom come with me to work.
Mhm.
The one time she came with me
Tall
to
people
work, I was
privilege.
like, now I gotta be put to work.
I love that. I love that. Yep. Tall people do have privilege, but listen, you're using your
Yes,
privilege for good, Eric.
yes.
Um,
Hmm.
and then the next one is remove this person needs to go. Can you help us get this person out of here? I've definitely and this is a situation where I just go to security for sure. And this is another reason why we like doing these trainings for venues and dealing with the whole staff. Scarlett mentioned earlier, when you adopt these policies, it's important to share them with your whole staff and to make sure everybody's signed on, including your security team. Um, so that if I come to you as the DJ or if a bartender comes to you, you're actually going to work with us and help us together as a community to make sure that somebody that needs to go goes, so that everybody else can feel safe. Um, Chanel, I think even just grabbing a few glances goes a long way and starts a conversation. Yeah, exactly. Wonderful. Right. So, Scarlett, actually, now that you mention it, I've thought of this. I've done this before where what I'll do is your friend okay? Are you like you've left your friend alone there for a while and I really think you need to go back in and check on them because they are having a wang dang doodle of a time. You know what I mean? Like just making sure that their people know that they're acting out. Because 9 times out of 10, their friend will be like, "Oof, so sorry for him. Don't worry, we'll take him out." You know? So I agree, Scarlett. Um, and then the last one, and this is so important, is supporting people. You know, if you're not that outgoing, you don't feel comfortable really getting involved, um, or if you've arrived after you've seen something happen, um, you know, and somebody just wants to talk about what happened to them, just believing them, listening to them, making sure that they feel heard, seen, believed, and possibly also sharing resources that they could use. We actually have a resource page on our website, um, that is linked to all sorts of services. Um, and so we invite you to check that out when this is done. But sharing resources with them and just helping them and listening, can be make a huge difference. So these are some bystander tips. Uh, and this last part, just want to make sure we have enough time for questions. KK, we should probably barrel through this so that people can speak to us and ask us things.
Hmm. Let's
Um,
do it.
yeah.
So, wait, was somebody else about to say something?
No.
Oh, sorry about that.
Hmm.
So all right, so we're gonna bring it out. So protecting yourself as an artist, right? These are the strategies for DJs and artists. Setting boundaries before accepting gigs. So what that means is having a nice little contract, everything written, everything written, everything written, everything written. I will say that repeatedly. Everything written down.
We talk
Trust me.
about this over a phone call is a problem for me.
I'm
And
going through it right
I'm just
now.
gonna leave that where it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything needs to be written down. Text, email, even if you were on the phone with the person, send an email saying, hey, as per conversation, we spoke about XYZ. It'll save you tons. Two, clarifying expectations with promoters and venues. Being clear about what it is that you want to do, when it comes to your gigs and stuff, because promoters will try to, like, if you're not clear, they will try to, like, swindle your whole vibe of being a DJ for this particular event. You just don't want that. Just be like, hey, this is what I want, as me coming in as a DJ and providing a service. Because at the end of the day, you're providing a service, or as an artist, right? Three, protect your time, safety, and personal space. And four, trust your instincts when something feels off. When I tell you, like, something for me, like how I could tell something is off, is when my body, I get sick very easily. So sometimes when I get sick, that's usually my sign for me to not only rest, but when I don't take on a gig, I always find out that something else happened, or like there was a reason, like a good reason as to why. Like I don't like to say the term dodge a bullet, but in some cases I've been lucky and blessed. um I guess we
Camilla,
can go to
uh, sharing some good contracts that have helped. Um, we can do that. Just message me on, as a matter of fact, if you message me on Insta, um, with your contact info, I'll be able to share some of the stuff that I've used for sure. Um,
Mhm.
do we make contracts publicly available? That's a
So
good question. I don't, because it changes depending on the gig.
yeah, I was about to say, like, if you're doing like corporate gigs, like for me, just to be on transparent, like if I find out that the gig is corporate, I'm charging out the ass.
Yeah.
But if I find out it's a super community event, I get it, the resources might be a little different, then I might barter, or I might, work something out. But of course, if folks could afford my prices, then let's do it.
Hmm.
But I also had to set boundaries with that too, because I've been in situations where folks would have the money, but they don't appreciate the DJ. Like, and what I mean by not appreciating the DJ, they not appreciating the amount of work and time and energy that we're putting in. And sometimes they assume that we should get paid XYZ because they probably knew somebody else who got paid the same price, which is not fair.
Yeah. For sure, Scarlett. We can come up with a separate resource that we can share with probably with Sisters in Sound or Femme House, and hopefully they'll be able to share with the rest of whoever was signed up for this workshop. And so we'll work on that separately for sure. Thank you. Um, Moving on. So we have a before, during, and after scenario, and we'll just go through this very quickly because we want to be able to answer whatever questions you have before we get to the end of the workshop. Um, so before setting expectations, clarify your roles, expectations, and logistics for the engagement. This repeats some of what KK was already saying. So clarify what you expect beforehand. That could be, I want to be in an elevated DJ booth. Nobody is allowed in my booth. I don't accept requests. Nobody should be coming up to me, putting their phone on my head. And I've had people literally put their phone on my face like this. So that's a problem. Confirm payment terms, timeline, and method when applicable. This is usually a little easier to do when you're doing private events, corporate events, and weddings and things of that nature. Dive bars, it's a little harder with them. Ask about who will be present and what the environment will be. Also, if you're in the area and you're a local, checking the space out and the vibe out to decide if this is a space where you even feel comfortable or where you would feel comfortable promoting it to your crowd. Um, Identifying a point person you can contact if issues arise. Find somebody trusted in the space if you can. If there's somebody who you know will be in your corner, who will believe you, if it's not the promoter, um, even if it's just the sound guy. There have been times where I didn't feel safe with anybody but the sound guy randomly. And I was just like, I can tell he gets it. And I just like latched onto him because I knew that if anything happened, he would vouch. Sometimes it's not the person you think it's going to be. Find the person who you know gets it and will believe you and support you if anything goes down. Um, and this happens, yeah, yeah. And this also happens when if you show up to your gig early and get to know the staff and say what's up to the staff, you can pretty much get a sense of like who's giving a weird vibe versus who's giving a nice, friendly, supportive vibe if you come in a little earlier to check things out. Um, Communicate how you want to be introduced or referred to and assert that. So your artist name, pronouns, and your role. In particular, if your role is not an MC, if you're not doing MC work that night, and they're telling you that they want you to get on the mic, but that wasn't a part of the agreement,
Or they
that's
want you to do the sound.
yeah, that's a boundary violation. That's a boundary violation. They want you to set up equipment and the equipment was already supposed to be set up, but you have physical limitations that don't allow you to set up equipment because it's too much for you physically. That's a boundary violation. That's ableist. So these are things that to consider before going in. Plan your arrival and departure logistics so you can leave comfortably and safely. There are some accessibility issues here because finances are a thing, and not everybody can hightail it in an Uber out of there if something feels uncomfortable. I had to do it the other day. I was feeling very unsafe in a space mentally, and I just said, I can't even take a train, and got in an Uber, and it cost me, and I can't always do that. But if you can, these are things that to plan ahead of time, to protect yourself. Um, Also, and I know that this is like, I just noticed that Uber has a section where you can select women drivers. Do with that exclusively. Do with that information what you will. I'm not saying that's necessarily a safer situation. I'm just saying it's an option. It's there. Um, and I just recently noticed it the other day. Um, Maintaining boundaries when you're there. If something feels off, pause and check in with yourself before responding. Use clear professional boundary statements when needed, letting people know I need to focus on the work right now. I'm not comfortable with that. I was talking to KK about this, and KK was telling me that she really likes using I statements. Do you want to elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, because sometimes like And I'm in this weird healing phase where I'm like learning how to take accountability. And
Hmm.
so sometimes, like, even I'm pretty sure today I probably slipped up and made it seem like everybody is on the same page about XYZ, which I would hope to, but at the same time, right? I get to use I statements, right? So I like to be like, oh, I this, I that, because not everybody is probably thinking the exact way. We all have different perspectives.
Hmm.
And I get to learn from that, right? I need to focus on this right now. To me, like, it's something powerful about that. It's like something about that for me, it reclaims my power, especially if I
Yeah.
feel that somebody is trying to take my power away,
Um,
unintentionally, intentionally.
I agreed. 100%. Thank you. Um, and these last two just reassert things that we've already said. So, um, Scarlett, also, when we use I statements when setting boundaries, there's less room for other people to be defensive. Sure. Because it's not about them or accusing them of anything. Thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful.
Mhm.
And gives more perspective. Seek support from trusted collaborators or staff if needed. We did say that. So after closing the interaction, you want to confirm next steps, payment, follow-ups, future collaboration. When it comes to payment, this is not necessarily related to preventing sexual violence in nightlife spaces, but it is something that women in nightlife spaces often thank you, Bianca. Um, this is saying Bianca has said that they love the before, during, and after boundaries from start to finish. So thank you. Um, when it comes to payment, it's something that we talk about just because people really do try to take advantage of us. And it just is what it is. But where applicable and when you can manage it, which is not always the case because people love a net 30, they love a net 30 down. But if you can get a down payment, if you can get a partial payment to confirm the day, if you can assert that if somebody has canceled on you at the last minute, if a venue has canceled on you at the last minute, I have made even dive bars pay me a cancellation fee. I've had local bars. I've said, no, 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 no. You cannot cancel my gig an hour before and just think it's cool. Um, I do not believe that they would do that to someone else, leaving that where it is. Yeah.
A good question.
And in nightlife, oftentimes that results in taking the loss, Chanel, and not working there again. And warning your circle, warning your network, letting your network know. I've done that. I don't like calling people out, but giving a gentle tip to your circle, to your network, and being like, listen, child, I'm gonna tell you what they did to me. They might not do it to you, but I'm just letting you know they did it to me, and you can do that information what you will.
Yeah,
Um, and just not working at that venue again.
right.
Supporting venues that just have good policies when it comes to this sort of thing. Um, Leave when you feel ready. You don't have to stay in a space where you feel uncomfortable. I have become the reigning queen of that. I was horrible about that before. I always felt like because it's important to pay your dues, because it's important to network, because it's important to socialize in our scene, and this is a highly social scene. I often found myself in situations where I was not listening to my body, I was not listening to my mind, I was not listening to what I needed. And I would stay in situations that were terribly uncomfortable, and sometimes even now, just because it sometimes it just comes with the territory. But I always check in with myself and I go, can you leave now? Can you just say, you know, thank you so much for the invite. I had a fantastic time. I am going to head out now. I am going to assert that this is the time that I'm leaving and just head out if you're not comfortable. Anybody who is a safe person to be around, a safe person to be working with, um, will a safe person to have in your community will respect that boundary if you set it. And it just lets you know who you're working with and who you're socializing with. People who you want in your circle are people who are going to respect those boundaries. If something doesn't feel right, share it with people you trust in your community. And document important details for professional and safety reasons. Like KK said, I know KK would say it a million times. Get it in writing, get it in writing, get it in writing.
Hmm.
Whenever you can. And even with a little dive bar, even with a little local establishment that likes to call themselves a little hole in the wall, a humble little, the minute they want to get on a phone call with you versus text or email, Houston, we have a problem. If they only ever do business on a phone call and they don't want to write nothing down, that's a problem. Um, so, ooh, we sure did wax poetic. Okay. So, Fatima, I know we said we were going to allow ample time for questions. And I am happy to make myself available for however long people have questions. Even though we did cut it cut it pretty close. But we're there now. We're finally to the end of our presentation. Thank you, Camila. Thank you, Fatima. So you said you mentioned how power imbalances bear on these situations. How can we manage working with or orbiting characters that control venues, bookings, huge brands, fests, etc., that have reputations when we are artists with much less power and or not from that community? Thank you, Mimi. Fatima, this is a great question. And actually, I was just in a Zoom the other day called Reimagining, oh dear, Reimagining Nightlife. I'll share the actual name of it, but it was put on by Tara and Jada Lorraine, DJ Tara and Jada Lorraine. And we were having those conversations as a community about how we can take power back. DJ Tara in particular was talking about has a lot of expertise on urban development, works in urban development spaces. And we're trying to brainstorm models for how we can host events in spaces that feel so much safer, and prioritizing those spaces, but creating events um, in our own private spaces that don't rely and don't require us to have to do business with specific characters. Um, and supporting each other in our pursuit of getting to those spaces where we can have a huge platform like Femme House. To me, this is huge. You know what I mean? Um, and helping to prop each other up and prop each other up until we are those people that folks are coming to for these big gigs and festivals and such. Um, and so conversations like that, more workshops where we can get together and brainstorm stuff like that. Um, and also, I think one thing that Outsmart likes to focus on, a big focus for us is not isolating venues who have a nasty reputation and not isolating figures that have a nasty reputation and calling them out and sort of canceling them and throwing them off to the side, because then it kind of deters us from being able to have a conversation with them, which we want to have a conversation with them. We want to, and you know, Fatima, that is controversial, right? That's a controversial take because not everybody who we want to hear our perspective and work with us is going to be willing. Some people will say they want to work with us. Some people will say that they want a training with Outsmart. Some people will claim to buy into what we are doing, even just so that they can have that stamp of having an Outsmart training, and that is a problem. But we still want to call people in because then it allows us to have conversations with people. It allows us to impart what we know to folks who maybe we thought they were not on the side of the artist and it just turns out that they didn't have enough information. Or if we're dealing with a much more predatory type of figure and we can come in and have a conversation with them, then at least we know who we're dealing with. And we can keep our community informed and we can help to keep our community safe. Fatima, I hope that that is as clear as I can possibly make it. But we don't do a lot of calling out. We do try to do a lot of calling in, and we do understand why There are efforts to cope. At least we know, right, Juan? And that's the whole idea. Um, because our focus is more so on educating each other and supporting each other, which if we're pushing folks away, we can't get the information we need to be able to support each other. Um, so we do try to work with as many people as we can. And all of the questions you asked, as a matter of fact, I'm going to copy that. Oh my goodness. I just tried to copy something and it threw confetti everywhere, and I don't know why it did that. But that was funny because this is something that is helpful for us when you ask questions like these. I may not have all the answers to that question. And we can go back as a team, outsmart, and go, this is a fantastic question. How can we help support in what Fatima is asking us? Um, and then come back to you with more information when we have it. And of course, Eric and Scarlett, if you want to offer more information, you can. And KK.
Yeah, Nina, sorry if I can jump in. I like that you're saying this because I mean it's something that we're all kind of feeling through. And
Mhm.
I think my approach to at least one of the places that kind of like people have told me has a reputation was to actually engage in a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And it was more, they were kind of like telling me what it was and making justifications and things like that. And just intuitively, I was like, I'm not here to kind of play judge and jury. What
Hmm.
I'm trying to communicate is that when I bring my community and we put our name on this, it's like I want people to know they can be safe and they can feel a certain way. So it was kind of like, this is what I'm planning, this is what I'm going to do on my end. And I'd appreciate if you came to this training or shared this training, et cetera, and just kind of trying to see how I can address it. Because I mean, I think we all know it's really difficult to,
Yeah.
we are building, but you still have, and I feel like so many people in nightlife get into nightlife because they are kind of jerks.
Yeah.
Um, so at least for me, I'll tell you how it worked out, but that's kind of what I've been trying to do, at least just to,
And just like consistently being in communication with each other about it, if you know that there are like minds in the industry, which obviously Femme House is doing, and obviously it's the whole basis of it, Sisters in Sound. Um, communicating to each other and going, I tried to, see if we could see eye to eye with this person, and they just weren't. I just don't think this venue is going to work out. I don't think it's our vibe. We should maybe take our event to this particular other place. Um, that's really more in line with our ethos and really more in line with our mission and the experience that we want our our community to have when they come out to see us. But then there are other times where you have to hobnob and you have to not hobnob, but you have to like, do business with people who are unsavory characters, and you try to do your best to impart what you know and to and hopefully they're receptive to some of it. But I think that this notion of we'll do what we can on our end, and this is what we plan to do on our end, and we're letting you know what we're going to do. We're letting you know what we're not going to tolerate as a collective, as the people throwing this party. And then, of course, I think it was Mimi who said having a third party there. If you then go, oh, we're also going to have a third party group come in, some safety advocates, and they're just going to be walking around making sure that people feel safe. Is that cool? Cool. 9 times out of 10, a venue, outside of letting you know that their security team are the ones who make the final determination about bigger issues, most of them will just be like, okay, and then having a safety advocacy team come in and just sort of like reinforce what your code of conduct is for your party, that you've communicated to the venue. Um, these are way that you can sort of take some power and some onus in the experience that your party goers are having, whether or not the venues or the bookers have your same politics. Um, are there any other, and Fatima, if you want to elaborate even further, or if you want me to elaborate further, or if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to just like sit and hold space for that.
no, no, I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, please, anyone, if you have questions, feel free. We will be sending the recording. They put their email in the chat. We'll leave a couple minutes left over if anyone feels like they have questions.
For sure. Um, this is a QR code linking you all to our resource guide, and I think there's another QR code after this, but I'm going to uh, read what Chanel has to say. As a bystander, how do you encourage people to feel comfortable? Someone I know danced a lot and felt uncomfortable. Someone even laughed at him and he laughed. Yeah. Um, Chanel, this is a great question. Um, I bystander, how to react? Do we kick out that person who's laughing and making fun? Mm. You know, in every space that you go into, there were going to be bullies, right? There are bullies everywhere. There are bullies on the playground when you're younger. There are bullies in dance spaces, and these are public spaces where you can't really kick somebody out because they're engaging in a behavior that's not, overtly violent. But these are these are behaviors that obviously make it difficult for somebody to enjoy themselves on the dance floor. And
Right.
a lot of times, if somebody is being laughed at for how they dance, these are behaviors that could be rooted in some sort of discriminatory ideology like racism or misogyny or homophobia or transphobia, etc., and other phobias. And so I think that one way to approach it is literally to counteract the behavior that the person is engaging in if you feel brave enough to do it, to go out onto the dance floor and dance with the person who's being laughed at and help them to feel affirmed.
Right.
I do stuff like that all the time. If I see that somebody is being isolated, and I'm sure that there are going to be people in the chat who are going to say, oh, me too, or at least think it. Like when you see somebody being singled out or isolated, yeah. I love to just go up to them and be like, hey, what's good? Oh, I like it, and then like the other day I saw this dude, he had these orbs. I guess it was like some sort of rave tool that he was using on the dance floor, and everybody was kind of looking at him weird. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so cool. What are those? And how do you use them? And just trying to find out more about it so that he didn't feel weird, um, enjoying this thing that he enjoys doing on the dance floor that wasn't really hurting anybody. Um, Even approaching the person who is laughing and saying that isn't cool or giving a disapproving face can be something. Yeah, be kicked out, especially if it is persistent. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, um, I think that this whole time I've been steering away from behaviors that can seem confrontational. But Eric, thank you for reminding me that sometimes it is okay to like go up to somebody and be like, "That's not cool. Like, don't, why are you doing that? Like, leave this person alone." Or maybe not a directive, but that isn't cool. I think is probably a neutral way to do that. KK, you have a perspective on this that I haven't already said.
So I'm not gonna lie, a part of me feels like I'm thinking of something that I know that I've done in the past, which I
Mhm.
know you can't do this with everybody.
Ooh,
But for me, like sometimes I don't have to say much. Like if I'm the person that's being affected or whatever, sometimes I don't have to say much. It's something about my face. I could just say one line and people are upset at the fact that I probably won't seem like I'm bothered by whatever it is that they're saying. Like I would laugh with them. Like I
hmm
would be like, say if somebody says something and they're like, ha ha ha, you can't dance, and I'm like, ha ha ha, you can't either, but we on here together. How does that feel? Right? Or like if somebody for some reason call me the B word, right? Call me bitch. One of the things I like to say, and I know I'm gonna use this line a lot when I work in schools again, but I'm gonna be like, look, I've been called worse. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been called worse. And one silly thing I always wanted to do was you know how in that song with Too Short, when he be like, what's my favorite word? Like I want somebody to call me
Turn
that
it into a
and I want to
joke.
sing it. I want to sing it and be like, what's my favorite word? And everybody's like, bitch, because everybody knows that song, at least the people that I be around. So like there's like playful ways to go about it. Of course, be careful with how depending on your situation and stuff. But yeah, I'm always in a place where I have to unfortunately use my Gemini Venus antics on people because I'm just like I just don't have the time no more in capacity.
I feel, listen, that's real, KK. You know, we can't always be perfect. And Eric said get a security or tell a bartender someone is being a jerk and laughing at people and making people uncomfortable.
Mhm.
What's the number one thing you would want every venue to implement? The number one thing for every party promoter, number one thing for an artist, and number one thing for a bystander. Um, the number one thing for all of them is to remember why nightlife exists. We are here to be in community with each other, enjoying wonderful music, engaging if you want to imbibe or engage in some sort of substance, that's your choice. You know what I'm saying? And just letting loose. We live in a very stressful society, and the whole purpose of this is for us to be having a good time with each other and enjoying movement and enjoying being free and getting loose with each other. And
Mhm.
remembering that one thing, I really feel, thank you, Carly. I
Thank you, Carly.
appreciate you, Carly. And the one thing that I really think can help to mitigate a lot of these issues is to remember why we're coming here in the first place, right? And getting back to the root of that. Thank you, Chanel. Want everyone to feel empowered and escalate. Yeah, thank you so much. Y'all have been amazing.
Well, thank you
Mhm.
both so much. I'll let you have some time back. I know it's getting late. But yeah, I'm gonna make this recording available to everyone, and I'm happy to connect anyone that would like to schedule a training with OutSmart or have more questions as well. And I also like that you shared this resource document. We're based in DC. I'm gonna see if I can try to put something similar together as well. And if anyone wants to help in the chat as well, you're welcome. But thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Nina and Kay and Femme House and Bianca. And yeah, have a great night.
Thank you, Fatima. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Take care.
All
Thank
right, take
you.
care. Ooh, oh, stop share and bye, KK. We'll talk off of this. Okay.
Okay.